Hello, I'm Panos Kotzathanasis and this is ASEAN Movie Pulse Interviews. Today I'm here with Chen, who has two films in Thessaloniki Film Festival this year, Drift and Breaking the Ice. How are you,
The
Andoni?
breaking ice, not breaking the ice.
Ah, Breaking Ice,
The
okay,
breaking ice.
sorry.
Yeah.
So, have you ever had two films in the same festival at the same time before?
No, but this year I've had a lot of festivals where, like both films were played. I was in Australia in August, at the Melbourne Film Festival, and they played both my films. In fact, they played all the films that I've made before. And I was in Hof in Germany, and they played both films. And now in Thessaloniki, both films are being played. Usually, the festival would love for me to be there because they're playing both of my films. But yeah, I think it's probably going to be the first and last time where I made two films back to back.
Was it exhausting or?
It was. I wouldn't call it exhausting, but I literally wrapped The Breaking Ice on the 8th of January in China, and on the 17th of January I was in Greece scouting. That was how close. Like I shot both films within a span of 6 months, and in fact they were both released at festivals, and also in the span of about 5 months. Like Drift premiered at Sundance in January, and then The Breaking Ice premiered in Cannes in May. I wouldn't use the word exhausting because I just came out of 2 years of not doing anything, sitting at home during the pandemic. I think there was so much pent up sort of energy and frustration, and I wanted to create. I wanted to make something. I wanted to exist as a filmmaker. I think that was driving me, that wanting to know that I still exist, that I still know how to make films, that I have an identity.
And how was it location scouting in Greece? Did you enjoy it or was it hard?
Yes, I enjoyed it a lot. There were two scouts actually in 2021 during the pandemic. I still remember I had a film that I made remotely with the same actress in The Breaking Ice, Zhou Dongyu. I made this anthology film called The Year of the Everlasting Storm, where 7 directors contributed, a short film about the state of the world, and including Jafar Panahi, Api Chapong, David Lowry, Laura Pontius, and a few others. And that premiered in Cannes. It was a postponed Cannes, so it was Cannes in June, I still remember, 2021. That premiered there. And I flew from Cannes to Greece, and that was the first time I scouted. I was in Greece for slightly less than a week. And then the second time I did more thorough scouting was in January 2021. 2022 actually, January 2022. It was the first time I came to Greece was in Thessaloniki, for the festival in 2019 with wet season. So I've never been to anywhere else in Greece. So it was the first time I've been to Athens. It's the first time I've been to the surrounding areas. And because there was a very key location in the film, which is an archaeological site, like Greek ruins. So we literally drove to a lot of spots. I've seen so many, at least within about 2 hours drive of Athens, a lot of archaeological sites, and I have to say it's a very beautiful country. I was actually quite surprised by how beautiful it is. Like I didn't believe you can have water that is so blue and clear and crystal clear even. I was quite. I mean, everyone has got sort of preconceived sort of notions of what Greece looks like. It's our postcard version of what Greece is. But to experience it yeah, with my own eyes, it was quite something. Yeah, I really like this country a lot.
Oh, okay.
The people as well, the food. I think it's some of the freshest produce in the world. In all ways. I'm talking about vegetables, from aubergines to tomatoes to seafood. And there was there's a natural warmth. I feel like there's a natural warmth in the people here. Yeah, I felt that even when I was working here with the crew here. There was. It felt like there was people always carry warmth in their hearts, which you don't see all the time, maybe in Asia. Yeah.
And how was the experience? So this is first time shooting with foreign crew. Let's say there were French, Greeks.
Yeah, I was the only Asian on set. It was. We had some Americans. We had the Brits. We have a lot of French key creatives, and of course mostly Greek crew. It wasn't that hard. Of course, because there would be some Greeks that don't speak English that well, and there was moments where it was lost in translation. But no, like everyone believed in the film. Everyone knew what we were doing, and I think it wasn't that. If you ask me, it was the physical challenges. Not really about the people, whatever. It's the physical challenge of how the setup of making a film is. Not just about Greece, in Europe, and I was trying to get accustomed to it. I literally came from making a film in China. In China, you shoot 7 days a week. You shoot a minimum 12 hours, sometimes 15 hours. Yeah. At least I shot 15 hours max. I know filmmakers that shoot 18 hours, 20 hours, but there are no break days. And of course, everything is highly regulated. In Europe, you shoot about 10 hours a day. And I remember we only shot Mondays to Fridays because it's more expensive to shoot on the weekends. You have to pay everyone double. So we shoot 5 days a week, 10 hours a day, Mondays to Fridays. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was working in an office. I've never felt that before. In fact, because I was so coming off such an intense shoot in China, you don't stop because every day you're shooting. And I was sleeping 3-4 hours every day. Because after a shoot, you still have to have production meetings and all that. And then coming to Greece, all of a sudden I had Saturday, Sundays, the weekends off, and I still remember, I can wash my clothes. I'm gonna do the laundry, and then I put out the laundry, and then I still have so much time. I didn't know what to do. For the first time in my life, while making a film, I could watch Netflix. I mean, it's even now and I was actually a bit unused to it because we're shooting in late spring, right? So the days are longer. The sun sets at 9 o'clock, and because of the hours of shooting, I remember sometimes we have to wrap at, depending on what time we start, we have to wrap at 6 o'clock, and I'll be just looking at the sun. I'll be looking at, there's so much daylight. In Asia, we'll just be shooting all the way until you lose the light. But we had to stop because you don't want to go into overtime. It would increase the budget. And so it was quite interesting for a filmmaker that's very used to maybe doing multiple takes. In the past, for certain scenes or certain shots, if I want to get a performance, I might have to do 10 takes, 15 takes, maybe even 20 overtakes. I think I remember on Drift, we were averaging about maximum 3 takes. It needed to be quick. We needed to be very precise and we didn't move very quickly. But of course, we had great actors on the film.
But
But
which
I
one
felt
do you
like I was constantly having this unease. You know, I was feeling anxious because I was like, do I definitely have the material? You know, like, do I have the performance? And you just have to trust yourself.
But which one do you prefer in the end, the Asian way or the Greek way?
I wouldn't mind shooting a film the European way, the Greek way, but with a budget where I could shoot more days.
Okay.
But you know, it is you know, independent sort of like drama. You know, it's not like some big studio film. So there are limitations, you know, to the resources that you have. But you learn as a filmmaker. I think you learn eventually that, you know, whatever shape, whatever sort of situation you are in, you find your way to make your film. You know, and there's no one sort of fixed way of making a film. And more as I make more films now, you know, like it's quite funny to think that between my first film and my second film it was 6 years, and then I made my third film and fourth film in a span of 6 months. But as I make more and more stuff, you realize that there's no one way, and actually it's a good thing. I felt making these two films, whether in China or in Greece, I learned a lot, I grew a lot, I found a different possibility as well for myself as a filmmaker.
And tell me a bit about the casting and the way you cooperated with the actors. They are both kind of famous, let's say.
Well, I don't know, like, if you're talking about famous, you know, the three actors in you know, the Chinese film, they are also famous, you know, but in the end, it's, you know, like, if you put all that aside, you're still back to the basics of, you know, what is the scene about, and trying to capture that emotion and trying to get that performance. You know, it doesn't really change, you know, like how you make a film. You know, I remember when I was working with, you know, the famous Chinese actress Zhou Dongyu, you know, like she's won so many awards, she's done so many things, but she was telling everyone, you know, like, it was so hard working with me because I kept pushing her, and she had to do, like, you know, the boys had only maybe like 10 takes at most. Like, for her it's always 6 or 8 takes. For her it's like 20 over takes, because I'm pushing her because I wanted to capture something else. I wanted to push her to reveal, you know, whether it's the emotion or performance that we have never seen before. And I guess even for Drift it's like that. Cynthia Erivo is a very, very good actress. You know, she was Oscar nominated for a film before. Interestingly, like Alia Shawkat, who, if you look at her previous work, they mostly are more comedic in tone. There's more comedy, and it's interesting, you know, like when you see her in this more, you know, of course there's humor in this, but it's a much more serious film in a much more serious role. And I really saw a different side of her, which was very pleasing to watch. I don't think there's in fact there was a Greek actress that was in one scene in the film, you know, and she was playing Italian, you know, in the film. I can't remember her name now, and I feel so embarrassed. Do you remember her name?
No.
The one that played the Italian couple having the massage.
No, I don't remember her name. Yeah, she seemed familiar, but
But everyone was telling me, like, oh, she's the Monica Bellucci of Greece.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, you know, that's, you know, everyone but in the end it's the same, you know, like, we work on the scene, we talk about it, we capture the emotion, we capture the performance, and sadly, we also have very short time to do it. So it was constantly quite stressful, but it also fires up people to push them to, to get to where the scene, what the scene needed, and get the beats and reach those moments faster.
And how, after shooting this movie, how do you feel about this whole concept of immigration, this forced thing that is happening all over the world now due to war? But in Greece, it's like really prevalent. It's happening like huge numbers,
I think it's going to continue, sadly, because of what's happening in the world right now. We literally have 2 wars happening in the world, and it doesn't look like it doesn't look like it's stopping. It looks like it's going to propagate more violence and more wars and more hatred, and more displacement. And nobody wants to be displaced, But interestingly, I feel like all my films have always been about the outsider. Even if you look at my first film, technically it's not a permanent immigration, but it was about a Filipino maid, a Filipino nanny that, comes to Singapore to work. She's a migrant too. And my second film, in Wet Season, like the teacher, she's from Malaysia, she married to Singapore, she's working in Singapore, she's a migrant. Eventually at the end she returns. So somehow I've always connected with the outsider experience, maybe because I've lived outside of my home country for a long time. I went to film school in Singapore, and then I went to film school in the UK, and I've lived in the UK for 15 years. And then now recently I moved to Hong Kong. I'll be in Hong Kong for a few years. That feeling like you're in a place, but and you sort of know this place, but you don't really belong to this place. I understand that feeling very well. And I feel like I spent my whole lifetime trying to make sense of who am I and my identity and my belonging and all of that, which in a odd sense also helps with making the films that I make. Because when I make a film in Greece, when I make a film like Drift, which is about a Liberian African refugee, or when I make a film about 3 young Chinese youths, in the north of China, on the border of the Korean Peninsula, I don't bring any judgment, because I never sort of see myself as, oh, I'm from here and I'm like that, and then I come with my baggage of perception and judgment. I go in with fresh eyes. I see the world for what it is. I see humanity for what it is. But I feel very, very strongly in order for the world to be a slightly better place, that the only way is if we connect with one another as human beings. I think most of the time, in wherever in the world, like you talk about forced immigration and all that, like there are problems because you keep looking for the otherness, like I belong and you don't, you're the other, like you're looking for the otherness but then when you start to find the similarities, that we have the same hopes, the same fears, the same humanity, when we connect as people and we actually connect as society, I think that's how we start to see the value in everyone.
But did you feel the hopelessness of the protagonist. I mean, people like her, like right now, the situation she's in, she can see a future for her. She's like in the middle of nothing right now.
I mean, certainly I feel the pain and the hopelessness or the helplessness, you know, but I'm a hopeful person, you see, which is why, you know, I'm an optimist, you know, and I'm just not blindly hopeful. But it's also because I believe firmly in, you know, the strength of our humanity, you know, that we are able to push through even the worst of things. I mean, as a human race, right, we've gone through so much challenges, so many wars, so much pain and suffering, but we are always able to find some kind of glimmer of hope, you know? I mean, that's the only way, right? If we live life just, and it's such a sad word, the word hopelessness, you know, if we live life thinking like everything is hopeless, then everyone would just, you know, there's no motivation to live anymore. We might as well just all kill ourselves, right? But there must be, I feel like we're stronger than that. And in spite of the current weeks where you hear of so much, you know, disappointment and pain, you know, because of the wars, particularly in the Middle East, but you also hear stories of hope. You also hear stories where you know, people care, where people still find meaning, you know, in being alive. I'll be really honest, I think, like, because, you know, my other film, The Breaking Ice, also deals with that sense of feeling lost, you know, like, you know, and, you know, one of the characters is also struggling with depression and is contemplating suicide, but yeah, I feel we're better than that. Yeah. And yeah, and we have to find meaning in the small things. And in this day and age, it's good to just be alive.
Yes. So let's just say, if the movie continued, what would happen next, do you think? How would you imagine?
I think the film ends on a note where, you know, at least she's taking that first step, you know, towards rebuilding herself and reconnecting with people, society. You could see, you know, the character of Jacqueline, she starts as a recluse, you know. She was, whether is it her distrust in people or the trauma that she has, but she's trying to avoid to be in the crowds. She doesn't want to be intimate with anyone. You know, she tries to stay away from human interaction, but, you know, at the end, I'm giving away a bit of the plot, but, you know, at the end, she's willing to be hugged again. She's willing to feel human warmth from another human being again. I think that's important. You know, that's how, if you're only human if you connect as part of a bigger sort of society, you know.
Okay. And I guess, since we're out of time, the last question, what will you work next? What are your plans next?
I'm shooting a film back home in Singapore, with the same two actors in my first film, my second film.
The one you mentioned before, so you're moving forward with it.
So I'm making that, you know, it's called We Are All Strangers. I'm shooting that in 2024. And it's quite, it's a very delicate, you know, also quite epic, you know, because it's set over 2.5 years, drama of strangers forced to become a family. And the two leads are going to be the same two leads from my first film, you know, like Yo Yen Yen and Kojala. They played mother and son in Ilo Ilo, and then they played teacher and student in Wet Season, and it's two very, very interesting roles that they have in this new film, and it's going to be the third and final film of my growing up trilogy. You know, I literally discovered this boy when he was 11, you know, now 10 years on. He's 21, he's an adult now. and yeah, and this is filming his coming of age, his adulthood. Yeah, and I think it's a very meaningful closure to this trilogy.
Do you have like a fatherly relationship to him now after all these years, or?
I'm not sure if I have a father relationship now, but recently, because he knew we're gonna make another film, right? And then, so I said, oh, you need to, because he put on so much weight recently. He has been the biggest and the heaviest ever in his life, and I had to tell him, you know, you need to do something about it. You're only like in your early 20s. You're not like in your 30s or your 40s, you know. How can you allow yourself to be so, you know, ill-disciplined, right? And he was like, oh yeah, but we're shooting the film second half of the year. I got time. Yeah, he can be quite, I'll be really honest, I think he's probably the laziest actor I've ever met in my life. But he's also very, very talented. Yeah, he's one of the rare actors or rare people that, you know, when he comes on set, he doesn't bring his script, you know, he forgets this, he forgets that, but he doesn't forget his lines. He's the only person that would never forget a single word on the script. He would just read it once and somehow he remembers it, you know?
That's talent, I guess, right?
Yeah, and then in between takes, in between scenes, he would just be sleeping. You know, most people, they would just be chatting or waiting or, you know, like looking at what do you shoot next. He would just find a table and he starts, you know, like sleeping. Yeah, I remember on my last film on Wet Season, you know, like it was written into his contract that he need to stay at my home during the time of filming, because if he doesn't, he'll be late every day. He'll be late for work. He'll be late, you know, to come on set. So I'm the one that wakes him up every morning. Yeah. So is it a father relationship? I don't know, but at least when we are making a film together, you know, I have to be that disciplinarian, you know, because yeah, I don't think he's very good at running his own life.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it. Thank
Great.
you very much for your time.
Thank you.